Going to church on a Sunday is something many of us did as kids. It was just part of a normal week. But for most of the mainstream churches today, attendances are on the wane. So what's happening to the congregations? Recent census figures suggest that many people don't want to identify with specific churches anymore, while others are looking for a spirituality that better meets their needs. Helen Smith is a doctor running a thriving holistic medical practice in Auckland. She's also a member of the Church of Scientology, which was founded back in the 1950s by American L. Ron Hubbard. Helen's life as a Scientologist is a far cry from her conservative Christian upbringing in Australia.
I was born in Perth in Western Australia, and Mum and Dad emigrated there from England, so we were brought up in the Anglican tradition. And as a kid I used to go to church, and I loved going along and listening to hymns and hearing the sermons and things like that, so I had a sort of basic spiritual beginning there. And then from there I went to high school, was Uniting Church High School, and then I started to think when I was about 13, what am I going to do with my life? And I remember watching this old TV show which was about a Welsh GP. I'd worked out that I wanted to help people, and I thought that'd be really good, I'll work on that. And from there I got into university and started to study medical school. And for me it was a really interesting journey, because it was what I wanted to be doing, and I enjoyed it, but I got a sense that it was more about the physical side of things, the body, the things like illness, things like that. I started to have questions about the more spiritual side of things, and wanted to look and explore that. So I started reading books, Jonathan Livingston Seagull.
Right, yes, that's right, dates you.
Yeah,
yes.
that's right, yeah. Somerset Maugham with the Razor's Edge, things like this. So I was looking around for things, and then one day I was walking back from the bookstore, and a young Scientology man was there in front of the Church of Scientology. I didn't realise that at the time. And he asked me some questions, and the last question he asked me was, if I could have anything in life, what would I like to have? And I thought about that, and I thought I'd really like to have enlightenment, because I was kind of looking for answers at the time. And he said, well, I could show you more about that, would you like to come in there? I said, okay, I'll give it a go. So I was walking up the street after him, and I remember seeing the sign, Church of Scientology, and thinking, church, I don't know what this is, but I'll see, So I went inside, and I remember I did they have like a personality test that you can do.
Right. Why do they do that?
It helps see where you're at as a person. So it just uses a tool to show you how you're going and things like that.
Right.
And then from there it creates a conversation about maybe, there's some things that you might want to sort out or change or improve. So yeah, so I did that, and then I was looking at the wall. I was sitting there wondering where I'd got myself into.
Was this a good idea?
Yeah, was this a good idea, and what is this Scientology thing? And I remember reading the aims of Scientology on the wall of the room where I was, and it said, it was a civilization without insanity, criminals and war, where able can prosper and honest beings have rights, and where man is free to rise to greater heights, right? And I was like, wow, that sounds pretty good. If it is, yeah. If it's about that, then I could be interested in that. From there, I ended up buying a copy of Dianetics to read, and I remember sitting on my, deck at home, reading Dianetics. It's based on the discovery that there's actually a part of your mind which in Dianetics is called the reactive mind. And it's where you have all your previous memories of past painful experiences, so like accidents, injuries, operations, that kind of thing, losses, people who've died, loved ones, that kind of thing. And that's all recorded there and can actually have an effect on you in the present. As you go through that, it releases that effect, and so as a spiritual being, you're free from that in your life, yeah.
So you actually experimented with this with your family and friends. How did they feel about that?
They were fine, actually. I mean, not everybody was up for it,
Yes.
It's not everybody can sit down.
Yes.
People have varying abilities to remember things, so I'd find that some people could get it more than others, and most of the people that were willing to have a look and go through different things, they felt really good for that, and there was a sort of a relief, and I found they did have exact recordings of these moments that, you would think from a logical point of view that someone doesn't record when they're having an anaesthetic, or someone doesn't record when when they're in an accident or a period of unconsciousness, but it's actually recorded. So
How did your family feel about this? Because, I mean, it has had some notoriety in the past in Australia and New Zealand.
Yeah, well, I was a young, enthusiastic 20-year-old, and I read Dianetics, and I went home and Mum, Dad, I read this book, it's really good. And my dad was like, oh my goodness, you're being brainwashed, And I was like, it was kind of a strange reaction. I wasn't expecting that. I thought that they would read the book and see what I saw about it, but they kind of went with more what the popular media or the magazines or, some worried friends would say about them. So they never actually read anything for themselves. So I got a reaction of, their concern really from them.
Right, parental concern.
Yeah. And I mean, it got to the point where, at one point I wanted to take a year off medical school, which to do some more studies in Scientology and then come back after that year and just look into more spiritual side of things. And that was sort of the icing on the cake for them.
She's off.
Yeah, that's right. So it was kind of, I was given this ultimatum of, it's Scientology or us, and you're out of the will if you do that.
Okay.
So I chose to go and do it, and don't worry about the will.
Right.
That's right. And then the funny thing was, with the fullness of time, they started to see that it was something that I really enjoyed, and over the years they've realised that it's fine, that I'm,
It hasn't changed you into a different person.
No. And my mum even said years later, I'm sorry we overreacted back then when you got into Scientology. I was the first child. You can think about it. I was like the dux in my school, first person in university, firstborn child, and I was I was going off to become a doctor, and I was like, and here I am going. I'm very interested in spiritual things, and so it just created a worry for them that you could understand. And the church actually was very helpful with that. They helped me to look at how to restore communication with my family, and just there was like, if Scientology is about being free as a spiritual being, if you've got this area of upset with your family, it's not going to you're not going to be able to do that. I was working as a GP eventually in New Zealand for about 6 years. And that was one of those busy clinics, where you have high turnover and very quick appointments.
Yes.
And there was part of me that was very aware that there's really a more spiritual aspect, and that maybe I should be doing something a bit more holistic in my medicine.
Mm-hmm.
That was something that, for me, became quite important, setting up a holistic clinic. And
So did you set that up on your own?
no, I did it with a friend, actually, who was a naturopath, and that was about 4 years ago.
Mm.
And we just started, opened the doors and had a couple of patients a week at first, and then
Yes.
and then now we've got it 5 doctors and a couple of naturopaths. So it's sort of grown from there. But when I started that, one of my key, being a Scientologist, I had some ethical principles, if you like, that I wanted to make
What
sure.
sort of things?
Like making sure that we followed the Hippocratic Oath of do no harm. As a Scientologist, being aware that man is basically a spiritual being, I wanted to make sure that we weren't using any drugs that I was unhappy about. So in my practice, I don't use a lot of the, say, mind-altering drugs. I don't prescribe those. I'd rather look at underlying reasons for things, and if someone comes in fatigued or low mood, I'll tend to do a lot of blood tests and see what they're lacking in terms of their vitamin D and B vitamins and thyroid.
Rather than prescribing
I don't prescribe
antidepressants,
things like that. Yeah, so I'd rather get to that. And there is a big shift in medicine towards that anyway. But as a Scientologist, being aware that I'm dealing with a spiritual being, I don't want to be prescribing things that are, basically mind-numbing or creating problems like that. So. Yeah, so that's an area of ethics for me that I communicate to my patients and let them know that's how I work. Good, actually. That's good. Yeah. I think it's given me a sense of calmness and enjoyment of really helping. Being able to really see that the person in front of me is another spiritual being, a person that's not just a body. And as a doctor, that's really a really good thing to do. A lot of the studies that I've done in Scientology help me be there and listen and and be able to understand what's going on with the person in front of me. So that's been wonderful, yeah. That helps you with your energy.
A lot of us don't know very much about Scientology. In fact, we know it's got something to do with Tom Cruise.
Yeah, okay,
but that's
yeah.
it,
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about the beginnings of Scientology and I guess its origins in New Zealand as well?
Ron Hubbard was born in America, sort of 1911. His dad was a naval commander, so he was homeschooled and he travelled around a lot and looked at the different cultures, in Asia, and looked at the state of mankind. He was quite a curious young man, and he was sort of looking at what makes man tick, what's man about. are there any answers out there in terms of ways to help him with spiritual suffering? And from there he came back to George Washington University in America and studied actually mathematics, engineering, and one of the first courses in nuclear physics. So he had a very science-based background there. World War II broke out, and he had to go off and be part of active duty and things. Got a few injuries, came back to California, Oak Knoll Naval Hospital, and there were some soldiers there that were pretty badly injured, and there was a doctor trying to give them testosterone injections to help them recover. And he basically was able to use it as an opportunity, because sometimes they wouldn't recover from their previous traumas and injuries, and they wouldn't respond to the testosterone. So what he did was he worked on these ideas for techniques that he had for returning the person to the various injuries and accidents and trauma, take them through that, and then he found that they actually recovered and the testosterone started to work. And so the doctor was monitoring all that, he was doing his research. And so he decided at that point that actually the mind monitors the function of the body rather than the other way around. And fundamentally a church sprung up out of that, because it's a religious thing. The moment you enter a spiritual realm, right, you do that. So in New Zealand, for example, in 1955, they started up a church here in Los Angeles. I think it was just a year before that, and right, churches kind of started.
So quite early on in New Zealand.
Yeah.
So Helen, tell me what happens at a Sunday service in the Church of Scientology.
It's usually a sermon, if you like, by one of the Scientology ministers about some aspect of the Scientology teachings and things like, or technology.
So that would be a kind of teasing out of what these things might mean.
Yeah, you might cover an area like ethics and integrity or communication or something like that. So that part will usually take, 20 minutes, half an hour, something like that.
With livingness, from century to century, from age to age, and on we go and march along the path that leads forever up the countless tick of time. We crawl, we walk, we fly, we win, from here and evermore, the heritage of all our lives, and spend it once again.
We haven't got to the stage of developing hymns yet, but because we're quite a new religious movement, so it's not a lot of ritual or anything like that yet.
Right.
This is an adventure pure, where without knife or provender we leap aloft into eternity and span forever in a breath.
The real thing that goes on in a Scientology church is more the core activity, which is actually study. There's actually course rooms, or academies as they're called, and so students come in and they actually sit down and study various courses, and you do that on a sort of one-on-one yourself with the materials, and you follow through specific things that you're reading, and different, like it might be about communication or something like that, right. So you do a communication course.
Where do these courses get developed?
Well, Ron Hubbard developed
right.
all that, so he's basically the founder. And
right. Is he viewed in any particular way? I mean, is he a prophet, or is he
he said himself that he's a man,
right.
So he's not viewed, there's no aspect of...
there's no worship related to him?
No. Initially, you may have particular areas of life that you want to sort out. So there might be something ruining your life.
Right.
You might had a relationship break up, or you feel like you can't communicate to save yourself, or something like that. So you might choose to actually do something that relates to some area that you want to sort out. And then there is actually a road or a path, if you like, in keeping with the tradition of other religions, which you can actually go along and follow, and that's done in a particular order to actually cover these different levels of awareness. So Ron Hubbard just worked out what are the things that we need to be addressing so that you can be more able as a spiritual being. And when I've done it, it's been fantastic. I thought, wow, I'm really glad that I did that earlier stuff, yeah. And it does deliver what it says, which is one of the things that actually works. So yeah, to me that's good. Yeah.
Are they expensive?
They vary. Like you can do, some of the things are free. You can read books. Some of the stuff costs you very little, and some of the things, it might be the equivalent to sort of university course costs, because it's going to take you a year or so to actually complete it. So it varies. Yeah.
So where does that money go?
It goes to the church mainly, because you've got a church there that needs to run. It's not at all government funded. It's all self-sufficient. It's all basically used in the church and for community activities and things like that around the world. Yeah.
Let's talk about what Scientologists believe, because you've alluded to some of that. Clearly that people are primarily spiritual before they're physical.
One of the fundamental ones is that man is basically good,
Right.
that he's seeking to survive, and life in all its forms is seeking to survive. Man consists of a body, a mind, and his spiritual himself, the spiritual being. And the mind is not the brain; they're different things.
Right.
And when you die, your mind and you, if you like, go on and survive.
Right.
And there's an idea that you've actually been around for a lot longer than some people would have you believe. You know.
Right, so longer than this particular incarnation, if you like.
Yeah, it's not just a one lifetime, one body.
Right.
That we're more than just a complex bunch of chemicals. That is actually a spiritual.
Right. And Hubbard had a word for that, a name for that.
Yeah, he coined a word, Thetan, which is. It's because in other religions and practices there was this idea of soul, and there was a little bit of confusion about what is your soul. Is it something extra to you, or is it something you have, or are you your soul, or where does your soul go? So he used the word theta. Theta is the Greek symbol for thought or spirit, and N is just added on the end to make it into a noun. Like, engineering. So in its simplest term, it's you or me. If I said, how are you, Chris, I'd be talking to your Thetan, you know.
Right, so my identity in a way.
Yeah, but I mean, in my general life as a Scientologist, I don't go around talking about Thetans or, you know, I'm talking to people.
Language here.
It's technical language for describing when you're looking at the spiritual being within a physical universe and you want to define what's zero, if you like, that wild variable, that creative element within the world that creates, you know, the physical universe. What is that? So in Scientology, that's actually would be the closest you get to a definition of God.
Right.
It's not prescriptive about what you should believe in God. There's this concept of infinity, or life surviving as infinity. Yeah. So
is that what you mean when you say God?
Well, me, I have a sense. This is where you can have your own personal thing on it.
Yeah, that's good.
So I have a sense of like a creative influence or a point of origin, if you like, of how we came to be in this whole universe. Yeah. So for me, there's no particular being that I would, you know, or something like that. I just have a sense of it's more an infinite influence within existence. Is my concept of God, probably. Yeah. Yeah.
What other beliefs would there be for Scientology?
Beliefs. Well, it's very lacking in dogma and ritual and things like that. So the fundamental parts of it are these things of studying this whole, you know, body of knowledge that Ron Hubbard put together, which is, it's not life according to Ron Hubbard, it's actually observations about life. And the whole thing is that there's a point in Scientology that when you study something, it's that you're recognising that as being true for yourself.
Right.
So one of the beliefs is that it's very important to observe and look for yourself.
Truth is what's true for you.
Yeah, definitely.
Does that allow for a kind of a relativism and a lot of plurality of truths?
Yeah, it does. I think, you know, to say that there's an absolute, I would worry if someone was saying this is the absolute truth and you have to believe this, and, you know, well, to me it wouldn't appeal to me. I mean, it might appeal to someone else to have it. But Scientology is not a sort of worship-based focus where you have this truth and you must believe it. It's very much more an inward inquiry as a spiritual being, looking at different areas and using the tools that are there to find that out. So,
right.
All right, this is the session. Can you recall a time when you were happy?
I remember, you know, being one of those baby little rocket things where you're sitting in the backyard at my parents' place and the sun was shining. It was nice. I was under the almond tree, so that was cool.
Thank you. Can you recall another time when you were happy?
Part of Scientology is study, and part of it's auditing, these sessions that we do, pastoral counselling or spiritual, looking at your mind, your existence and areas of that, and particularly, you know, finding out things. So when you're doing that, sometimes you might only be able to remember what you had for breakfast, or you know, you might remember when you were 7 and you had your tonsillectomy, or, you know, when you fell off your bike.
Recall a time when somebody had given you something?
As people go and they get more aware and open up more areas, and there's specific sets of questions and directions and things, which is the technology of Scientology and auditing to help you to find different areas to look at. As you become more aware of that, eventually you can quite often come across the fact that you've previous existence. You'll start to remember, you know, what was happening last lifetime or many
further back
lifetimes
even.
ago.
Right.
Yeah.
Recall the earliest time you can when you had a friend.
Earliest time. Let's see. I was probably back Macedonia, sort of 300 BC. I had a good friend, and it was cool, really good. Yeah. Essentially, it's all done with the basis of helping you increase your awareness and your ability to be happier and live a better life.
To live this life more
richly.
richly.
It's not about just remembering that. It's about what are the specific areas of spiritual distress, or what are the specific areas we need to look at to be able to do better in life, and be more causative in life and things like that. Yeah.
What about going forward? Does it shape my future options in some way?
I'd say it would, in that, you know, once you're aware that you're a spiritual being, you've got more concept of, you know, say you die out of this lifetime, you're probably going to be a bit more aware and have a sense of what's going on, and perhaps some choices about choosing your parents, or, you know, things like that.
Right. Okay.
Without a complete amnesia about it all. You know, that's right. You might have a few skills that you've learned about, you know, they'd make some good parents, or, you know,
Right.
like turn up to the local maternity hospital, whatever you're going to do, you know. I don't know.
Okay, I think it's worth bearing in mind. I sense a kind of a parallel with Buddhism happening here. Is that's not just in my mind?
No, totally. Scientology is born out of a lot of these more traditional philosophies that have been around for a long time, like Buddhism and the Veda, and that kind of idea that there is a continuous stream of consciousness or life in all things, really, and that you as a spiritual being, or having your point of view, that does carry on.
One of the things that's in the popular mind anyway is that Scientologists believe in aliens.
Right, okay.
Tell me about that.
I don't know about that. It's one of those sort of unfortunate ideas that gets out there on the internet about Scientology, but it's actually not what Scientology is about. And it's kind of part of probably a poor effort to undermine Scientology, really. It's not really... It's nothing to do with it. I mean, as a Scientologist, when you're doing your auditing, you may recall, you know, times, previous existences and things like that. But it's definitely not about aliens, and Scientologists don't have a lot of attention on aliens or anything like that in their day-to-day life. Yeah.
So it's not people may or may not believe in aliens.
No, yeah. I mean, if you want my personal take on it, I mean, I think that the chances of there being life out there beyond Earth are probably quite high, but it's not something as a Scientologist that you think about, or anything that we're particularly concerned about, yeah.
Right. A lot of people are aware that there was some notoriety at various stages, I think particularly in the 70s, 80s, early 90s.
Yeah.
What do you understand all that to have been about?
I think, I mean, for me, it's a bit of an idea. It's kind of like teething problems, probably, that any new religious movement goes through. You know, when I look back on, you know, the history of Christianity or something like that, you know, the early Christians were fed to the lions in the Roman arena. Well,
it's fairly oppressive, yeah.
Yeah, so I guess it was a bit like Scientology's arena, if you like. You know, there were inquiries and various things and attempts to stop it because it was something new, and so they're just basically allegations that have been kicking around for 30 years, but they're not based in any fact, so yeah.
What's the overall goal, the point of all this?
The ultimate goal of Scientology would be, well, in a word, probably total spiritual freedom, and that you've got much more ability to be causative over your life and self-determined, and you're not just an unwilling effect as a spiritual being. There's more a concept of being able to experience different things and being willing to experience, and being more and more able to determine kind of what's happening with life, and also having an understanding and ability to help and awareness of the other areas of life, not just yourself, but mankind and life and the planet and things like that. Yeah.
Right. As a Scientology community in Auckland, do you engage as a group, the community as a whole?
Yeah, we actually do quite a lot of interaction with the community. For example, there's an event coming up where there's going to be a race up one of the local mountains in Auckland with, you know, wheelbarrows and people, you know, running and walking and so on. And at the end of that, Scientologists will be there to help them recover from the race, and you'll usually see a big, you know, yellow tent, which is the Scientologists there. They've got those all around the world, and so Scientologists go, you know, if there's been some kind of a tsunami or an earthquake, Scientologists will often fly and help with the spiritual aspects of what's gone on.
So what kind of form does that help take?
There's a whole area of technology, if you like to. It's called spiritual assist. An assist is something where you actually help the person get back into communication with their body or with the environment. So it might be a simple thing where you might help them locate themselves more present, and also maybe using your hands to actually touch various parts of the body and get them more oriented to the body and things like that to help relieve pain. You're feeling any better?
Oh, much.
Yeah,
okay. Much better.
Okay, good. All right, that's the end of the assist. Okay, cool. You want to come up?
Just enough.
Yeah. So you're feeling all right? Yeah.
I help
Okay, good. That's fine.
education of youth really in their human rights according to the United Nations Universal Declaration. And so for me that's, talking at schools or helping high school students if they want to start human rights groups, things like that. So I've done quite a lot of education and helping in that area.
For one of our projects we had to write letters to Amnesty International, like trying to help out. I don't know, that kind of... I don't know what we could do with
there was a
this.
Human Rights Film Festival recently, so just as a sort of purely voluntary role as a doctor and a Scientologist to help organise all the speakers.
We can wear those ones.
As a doctor, I got interested in, some of the treatments in psychiatry being fairly barbaric, and the idea is, that electric shock therapy is something that actually is still practiced in New Zealand, that a lot of people don't realise it's still happening. So as part of my role as a commissioner for the Citizens Commission on Human Rights, which is a human rights group that was founded by Scientology back in 1969, there's a petition before the government at the moment asking them to ban electric shock therapy in children, pregnant women and the elderly. So I've just helped put that forward and made a presentation, and hopefully that'll go through and create some changes in legislation. So, yeah. Hi, thanks very much. Is it the peppermint tea? Yeah. Great. Okay, thank you. One of the key ideas in Scientology is that, man is basically good, as I said. So there is this idea that you can improve things or do something about it. And I think as a Scientologist, I learned that my role extends beyond just myself or my family, but to my community and mankind. And so, yeah, there's an interest. I have an interest in the environment and, spirituality in general, and other religions doing well as well. I think, it's all part of life, yeah.
Helen, we started talking about your journey, which has led you to Scientology as a late teenager.
Yeah.
And where are you on that journey now?
I'm a very happy person, I'd say. Yeah, I had those fundamental questions, who are we, who am I, where have we been, do we go on beyond this life? And I've got a really good sense of that. And if you remember when I was 13, my whole purpose was to try and help others. And I have a really good idea of what makes up humanity, how to help other people, a really good sense of the spiritual aspect of things, and I feel a lot happier about, life and my existence within that realm, yeah.
This program was made with funding from New Zealand On Air.